Welcome to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Dame, holistic nutrition coach and speaker. Let's dive in. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm so excited for today's conversation and today's guest. My dear friend Trina is here with us today. Welcome to the show, Trina.
Hello and good morning wherever we are.
Yes, we're both on the West Coast here in Canada. So sending you love wherever you're tuning in from. And let's just dive right in, Trina, because I know we were just chatting beforehand and there's a lot to cover in a short period of time on this podcast. And I know you're so passionate about this work and so much expertise in sort of diving into these areas. So for the listeners, as you know, I'm really loving exposing you to various types of medicines and healing modalities that can really help you dive deeper into that inner work that we talk about here at the root of your addictive patterns with sugar. So I want to introduce you all today to 5-MEO DMT. Well, Trina's going to introduce you to it. But before we do, Trina, I'm curious if you can share just a little bit, you know, the short version of your probably very long and convoluted story of what got you into the health and wellness space, you know, into pharmacy, into then eventually working with 5-MEO.
Oh, okay. Let's see how we can condense this all. And so I think it almost goes into like, how do we be human? What is to be human? And I tried it all. You know, the things that they share with you online nowadays is kind of our compass. And I did all of that. Bought all the coolest things, traveled, all of the fancy restaurants and the beautiful Instagram-worthy plates and foamy things and drinks. Like I did it all. And at the end of the day, most days, I turned out to be divorced. And I turned out to be still body dysmorphia, couldn't look in the mirror, and just depressed and sad and anxious. And I thought, but I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything. It's a life that looks so great on paper and in photos. Like at this point, I had my doctorate in pharmacy, traveling the world. Yeah, it was just, it was nuts how my inner world was so different from my outer world. And it was supposed to be like, I'm supposed to be happy. And then that's when I just started to dig a little deeper. Like, what are all these things people are talking about? And back then it was like, oh, trauma and all these discussions. And so there were these little small invitations that you start hearing about, like meditation. Oh, what's that? What are these community building events? Like, for example, Burning Man. And I started to recognize and like really understand there's something more to life than just looking good on paper and photo. And the deeper I went, the more I started to feel like me. And that is joy. That is freedom. That is, when we're authentic with self, that is where, it's a beautiful feeling. And you just, as soon as the rabbit hole goes, it's like you're digging to like another universe now. It just goes so deep. So that's what got me here in a very broad sense. And it was psychedelics that actually was the key for me, where like we can understand, we could read, we could listen to podcasts, we can do all this stuff. And it's like, okay, that makes sense to me. I understand. That's an intellectual level. And what I learned, and especially this was a huge lesson because I did, it feels like 15 years of school. You can learn, but the experiential is where it integrates. And so psychedelics were the integrator of all the new lessons for me. So that's why I've been passionate about, give me a bird's eye view so I can understand what is happening here? How am I seeing the situation? And now psychedelics gives me a new way, but in a compassionate lens of seeing the situation. And then how do I process it and create new patterns? Because there's our default pattern, which was gifted to us from our parents and our caretakers in our society. And then there's the, I came into this world with my own authenticity. Let me create my new pattern. So that is what, yeah, psychedelics has done that for me, and 5-MeO in the most beautiful and intense way. Because as I mentioned, I took on this new path of community and meditation, and it's like kind of like all encompassing. Like, I just want to understand what spirituality is. I grew up non-spiritual, non-religious. Like, what is all this stuff? And so meditation, all of that has been incredibly, it's part of me. And that's why psychedelics and meditation and mindfulness, all of this, it's all connected. And 5-MeO is the most spiritual molecule experience that I have ever encountered. And I've done some crazy things, like 21 days in complete darkness and isolation, okay? Like,
Wow.
so this, yeah. And that was, my 5-MeO experience was the most ecstatically TRUTH in capital all letters experience of my life. So that's why I'm here to share that with the world now.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit. That was so beautifully said. And I think there's a lot in what you just shared that I know my audience can probably resonate with. That piece back in your story with the, like, that inner world not matching your outer world. I think we see that so much now. And I can sense some of my listeners like really feeling that when you shared that, and being in that place where, like, I should be happy, I'm doing all the things, or I should be healthy, right? I should be losing weight. I should be off sugar by now, right? Like, I'm doing all the right things, but there's still something missing. And it's that, like, that disconnection and that unwillingness, perhaps, and fear, which is rightfully so there, right? To actually go that layer deeper. So I love that you did that. And then sharing this other piece that I think my audience will really resonate with is, bringing forward that piece that you shared around, like, the psychedelics and the work that you've done there, helping bring all of the head knowledge into the body. Right. And I'm a huge proponent of that. We talk a lot about somatic work and all of that here on the podcast. And I think that again is where most of our listeners, most of reality, most of society is living in the head. Right. And as a pharmacist, right, you're very science-based. You have a lot of knowledge in your head, which is so helpful. But, we can just live in our heads 24/7 and it doesn't actually integrate. It's not actually in the cells of our being, shifting our way we see ourselves, the way we believe. So I love that, that piece, bringing that together, that this really helped you do that. So, okay, let's get into it. What is 5-MeO DMT? What is it? What are we talking about here?
And if you recall, during Toad School, I like shared that I'm decided to no longer take on the traditional route of pharmacy. So now it's my pharmacy background, but I'm now calling myself more like a safety consultant for psychedelics and former pharmacist.
Yeah.
And okay, let's go into, like, what is this molecule? All right, it's actually it's something that we create naturally in our bodies. Like, we have found it in our urine, our cerebral spinal fluid, and in our blood. So it is a very simple molecule that looks just like serotonin. And serotonin is one of the most ancient neurotransmitters. It's just kind of like a messenger for everything in our bodies, going from our guts, it's just messengers for gut, and most, like, blood clotting. It's just ubiquitous throughout our entire bodies. And so this molecule, it's just looks similar to serotonin and just attaches on and then creates quite a at low doses, which is what our bodies will be secreting. It's just, I feel like it's part of just our regular functioning. And then high doses, there's the theory that it's what we release upon birth and upon death. And I also believe during meditation or during very lucid meditative states as well. Yeah. And it originally, there's a whole history behind it, but it was first synthesized in Japan back in the 1930s, I think 1936, but no one ever did anything with it. And then it was the 60s where somehow, kind of, I feel like it's like one of those, it's like ayahuasca, where the people said, oh, the plants just told us which two, very distinct plants, just to brew them together. And I guess somebody told a gentleman to put it put it on a cigarette probably, and then just smoke it. Like, why would you even consider smoking the secretions of a toad? But that's where this new culture of smoking the toad is coming from. It's some, and apologies, I'm forgetting his name because there's been many different iterations of who it is, but yeah, it was back in I believe it was the 60s. Someone found a toad in the Sonoran Desert, and it's this toad that just sits in its cubby in its little home, and I believe just meditates for like 9 to almost 10 months out of the year in complete hibernation, in complete darkness, and then comes out when it rains, and then eats, and then mates, and then does the whole cycle again.
Wow. That's really cool. I didn't know that. And that's the bufo toad, right? That you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah. Just for everybody listening. So bufo is the, like, I guess the, what you would call like the natural nature form of this. And then the 5-MeO DMT molecule is a synthetic form, correct? That's like made in a
Yeah.
lab. No animals are harmed. Like, we love that.
Yeah, there's like from the secretions, and there's a lot of other things that are in the secretions of the toad, and that's why it is that's its protection. So it can be cardiotoxic, and there was a story where a dog had caught a toad and ended up being paralyzed for like 20 minutes. So that is its protective mechanism, and inside its toxins contains this one molecule, 5-MeO DMT. And because we have geniuses in the lab, we can now formulate it based on its blueprints, and we can remove all of the other parts that we don't want, and now we have just pure synthetic, and then it's measurable, it's controlled, it's pure, it's clean, and that's what we work with. Many facilitators work with now.
Yeah. Amazing. Yes. And I hope to be too one day soon. So I should have actually mentioned that at the beginning of our podcast for the listeners. I just recently completed the Toad School that Trina so beautifully hosts a couple times a year. You do that, right? And it's a training for those who want to work with or learn more about 5-MeO DMT. And it was incredible.
Yeah.
And we were joking before the podcast, because everybody listening to this, I have still personally never experienced 5-MeO DMT. It was coming like right into my realm and starting to call into me right around the time when I got pregnant. So as of the time of recording this, it is not an option with baby inside me, but perhaps once baby is out. So it's funny to have this conversation. I mean, I've heard so much about it and people's experience, and Ben has had experiences, and my friends have had experiences, and other therapists that I know work with it. And obviously that's why I wanted to bring this in and continue my education before I even jump into it. So we're going to have to learn from your stories.
Yeah, we could do it before and after.
Yes. Yay. I love it. That's such a good idea. So as you're talking about it, I can imagine people in my audience wondering, well, is this safe? Like, it sounds like you said like neurotoxins and from this toad, and like, is this medicine safe? I know so many listeners are sort of new to the psychedelic space, and that is a big fear that comes up. Like, can I overdose? Is this safe? Like, are there contraindications or reasons that maybe we shouldn't be using this medicine?
Yeah, and I think that's an important lens to see, is this safe and appropriate for me? And that answer is different depending on your psychological profile, your cardiac profile, your neurological profile. So it's something to consider. But it's many of these molecules, as we're finding out and we're studying, is extremely safe as long as we know the very small contraindications to each molecule. So psilocybin, LSD, MDMA, 3-MMC. We're learning more and more about these molecules, and then identifying the small pockets of people where it's not safe to use this for. And so I have been doing consultations, and they're safety consultations. Just from my pharmacy background, I go and review everything, the whole picture of what's your intention, to what's your lifestyle, to what's your diet, to what's your supplements, to what's your prescriptions, all of that. And we go and talk about, how do we have this be the outcome that you're closest to your expectations? How do we help keep it safe? And how do we help have it beautiful all together? And so this molecule, there's so many different ranges of how you could experience it, that it could be, I think it's, yeah, for the most part, extremely safe. But the dose, we should almost rearrange this, but the dose makes the poison, is like water can also be poison. So it's about ensuring the correct dose for each individual person.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. I love that. It's not a clear black and white here, but it is, in general, to sum up, like a very safe medicine as long as you're getting the consultations and the knowledge that you need to know, which is so amazing to have you, Trina. I do want to just shout out to Trina briefly here. She is the go-to in our community here in probably all of BC, definitely on the West Coast. So anyone listening to this, I'll make sure there is a link in the show notes below to Trina's website. If you are going into any medicine journey and are curious about medications that you're taking, maybe heart challenges that you're having, or neurological challenges that you've had, or just any of those concerns, chat with Trina. She is the one to talk to. Okay. So I'm just planting that seed right here. And you can chat from her for anywhere around the world. She's just such a wealth of knowledge. And as I said, my go-to for clients and myself, whenever I'm concerned about things like that. So yeah, I love that you brought that in. That's really important.
Yeah. And just to also add that my mission is to have it accessible. So I will talk about the donation model, but everything I do is by donation.
Yeah. Yes. That's so beautiful. Thank you for adding that piece. I didn't mention that. Yeah. Very beautiful and so helpful to have someone with your knowledge around like the actual molecule. I remember in Toad School, there was so much science that you were bringing forward. I was like, I have no idea what's going on right now. There's like molecules on the screen and we're talking about serotonin receptors and different metabolic pathways. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening here, but I know you do. So that's really helpful to have somebody like you in our corner, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this looks all confusing, but this is all you need to know right here. So hopefully drilled it down. And also we got each other. Like at the end of Toad School, we've got a community where we keep asking questions and learning more together. So that's the whole point behind all of this, what I'm trying to build.
Yeah. So beautiful. I love what you're doing. And I think it's so important. So what would be then I'm thinking again of everybody listening, like what would be some of the biggest reasons that you see people come to work with 5-MeO? Like what are some of the things people are seeking or some of the biggest sort of shifts that can happen with this particular medicine? Because I know they're all kind of different, right? And every sort of medicine has its own magic. So maybe you can speak to that with 5 and what you see people coming to do this work. What are the intentions behind that?
Well, when I used to serve 5-MeO DMT, and we're talking about the smoked and the one where you go into the highest experience, the highest dose and most profound experience, it's the medicine will meet you where you're looking, like where you want to go. So those who are more in their 20s or early 30s, their life path at that point is, what am I doing in life? What's my career looking like? What's my family going to be looking like? And when they wake up from their experience, they just understand. They know. They're like, this is me. This is my path. And it's just this new form of just sense of self. And then there are some who are seeking more about what is there to life? Is there more to life? Those who are seeking more of a spiritual understanding. And so that's where it takes them when they receive the high dose profound experiences. I've now understood what they say in all of those sutras and the all of those spiritual books. Is like, I get it now. Okay. And it's that experiential, like what all religion is trying to share with you, but it's like the experiential level. It's like, oh, I understand why kindness is important. We're all connected. Like when I am kind to you, I feel it within. Like we are all one. And all of the like those mantras, it makes sense. And it's not like, okay, only this box and this box. Like it's just kind of the trends that I've noticed. But it's true authenticity. It's where you want to go in life, and then the medicine shows you that and takes you there.
Yeah, that's so beautifully said. It's almost like, right, whatever your higher self needs in this moment. That's what I hear in that, right? It's like whatever is good for you or whatever it is that you're going through or ready to process, right? Let go of, like all of that could be gifted, depending on what.
And then the low dose is there's other ways to receive it, as you've learned, is there's like not only the smoked, which is the one that's most common. If you YouTube if you YouTube Bufo, you'll find out, like, you'll see videos of everyone smoking it. But my favorite way of receiving and serving is insufflated, which is intranasal. There's like, it's the same, it feel almost the same as like an IM injection, which is how ketamine is often administered. And that one is I'm guiding the experience. My authentic self is coming out and sharing what my heart wants to share. And so I believe everyone, yes, if you want, go do the amazing high dose, connect with you, connect with what they call like samadhi consciousness. And then after that, like what my own personal experience and knowing is that, oh, like I chose to be here. I chose, all of the joy, pain, rapture, but also sorrow, grief, sadness. So I chose all of this. So I'm here to just do it, process it, experience this all. And you get this new gratitude for, I get to be here, and I get to be stuck in traffic again. How wonderful.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that you said that. And it's actually a perfect time to maybe speak a little bit more to the dosing. Like, I know we learned this again in toe school, but I want you to speak to it. Like the journey that you usually take people on with sort of the 3 doses, and the difference maybe in like physical experience. Like, what can people expect at the low dose, the medium dose, the high dose, in terms of like that experience and what's going on in their body?
Yeah. Well, there are multiple different protocols on how to serve this medicine. And so how you're describing it was like, like different like strategies. And like, I like to take a stepwise approach because I find that to be the most consensual. It's like, I know what I'm getting into, and I'm saying yes to each like increasing dose, kind of as consensual as possible, at least, because you're going to go somewhere where very, very few people have gone. But it's, so the low dose or the handshake is what these people who I received the medicine from, I believe they're the ones who created this protocol. So they call it the handshake, the hug, and then the full embrace. And when I do training, we play around with the last dose. We just joke around like, what's this like last one? And so some people are like the French kiss, or but someone mentioned recently like the holy reunion. And so we joke, like I've been calling it that recently. And so the steps, how I offer it, is the handshake is the lowest dose. You're getting to kind of almost getting at the perceptual level, not psychoactive. And it's just like, okay, like I'm feeling my body. It's energetic. It's just, whoa, it's interesting. And for some people who have a lot stuck in their body, that comes out. Like it's a very small proportion of people, but like we're all a little traumatized, and some of us have learned to process with more tools than others. And so those who haven't had many tools, it's stuck on so much more, like layers and layers. And so that has to come out somehow. So it can be hard or it can be easy. That's not really a choice. It's just the medicine's just going to start shaking things up. And so that's why there's just such a wide range of, what's going to happen? So for the majority, everyone's like, oh, this was so beautiful. It was so blissful. It was like so relaxing. I could be here forever. And for some people, it's like, all these memories came up and I'm crying and it's really hard. So this is where if you're considering facilitating or sitting with, it's, hey, be prepared to be vulnerable, even at the tiny doses. And then getting into that medium dose, this is what I mentioned is my favorite, because you're teetering between conscious and subconscious, and you're not only receiving, but sometimes you can also program, because you're getting into that space where you, in that space of like lucidness, where your dreams are always trying to tell you something, right? So this is that space. And also it's where you're invited to let go and surrender. And that's when our egos, which is our beautiful protective mechanisms, it's there to keep us safe, but it's going to say, oh, find any excuse to stop this. This is scary. I don't like this. And so for a good proportion of people, it's like it shows up really scary. And for others, once again, it's like, oh, this was really nice. This is so pleasant. Like, let's go for the next one. And then when they're ready, and this is always consensual, depends on what they received. And sometimes the handshake is all that they needed. Sometimes the hug this is all I came here for. And then the last dose, the holy reunion, is this, I call it the biggest trust fall into the universe. It's like the most, I didn't even know what surrender felt like, but it was like every cell of my body surrendered into like ecstatic energy, pure energy, which is, it feels ecstatic. So that was my experience. And for others it's different. It's kind of like we all have our own lenses and what we're looking at. It's like, oh, well, I've got pink lenses on, everything looks pink. Oh, I've got like blue, everything looks blue. So it's different for everyone, but my path has been coming towards, I was curious about spirituality and I wanted to know what samadhi consciousness was. And so that's what I received. And I do believe that when you choose your facilitator, ask them what that experience was for them, because there's a very interesting, like I call it like ceremonial DNA, where how they received it and what their kind of their aura is it's going to very much color your experience. So like get really curious about, well, what was it for them, and is that something that's what direction I want to go to.
Yeah, that's really beautifully said. You're making me so excited to experience this medicine. Like, come on, baby, get out, get out, so I can get in on this. When the timing is right. This is all stuff that can't be rushed, but that it is actually an important note to place. I know that you mentioned this, and some other people in this space have mentioned this before, that 5-MeO actually metabolizes super quick through your body, right? So this is something that I will be working with and talking with Trina. Once baby is out and I'm breastfeeding, there are windows and pockets of time where it's safe for me to maybe do this medicine because it goes through so quick. Is that correct?
That's correct. We can have a whole discussion about breastfeeding and psychedelics, and like in pharmacy school and also in practice, but it's also up to the individual. Like we know what the risks are with every molecule out there, and it's, hey, what's the balance? What's important to you? And if we know that, so far we know 5-MeO is barely, like some studies are like maybe 2, maybe 10% bioavailable. And then that bioavailability in breast milk, how much of it is gone by 30 minutes. Like there's a whole, there's the science, and then there's the personal decision and the spiritual decision. Like some facilitators believe that you are birthing a spirit into a dual space, and then they're tethered to you. And by going into non-dual, there's also a spiritual difference. It's a whole long discussion, but there's also a spiritual side of, we're both here to do this dual stuff together for now. And then, okay, mama needs increased capacity. She needs now to retouch that divine. Okay, it's time for you to do that. So it's like, I checked in with my daughter. I have she's turning 3 very soon, but I checked in with her, and for a while she said no. And like she would, like, as I'm training, I'm also doing like small doses, but I was ready to let go into the non-dual space again. And she jumped on me and she's like, no. And I guess that's like disclaimer that yes, I do. I believe all of this work is beautiful work that is done in community. So that's why, yes, I do bring in family and everyone into the space.
I love that. Yeah, I love that we're kind of going down this little pathway, because this is something that I will be looking to you and others in like how to bring children back into this healing space and into this community. And I think you do that so beautifully. I mean, Trina's daughter was there during Toad School. She was there like learning with us. She was kind of she was in her own little world, like watching Netflix or something, but she wasn't like there, but she was there in the space. And it's not a scary thing to witness people in ceremony or people using, these psychedelic medicines for healing in that right type of energy and that right, intention. And I think there's, it's a tricky line, right? To like how to teach our children that this is safe and welcome and how to honor that this is how it's been done. This has been done in most cultures with children, with the whole tribe forever. Right? When we look at ayahuasca and Cambo, like the kids are always a part of it. They're sometimes even doing the medicine in some of these places. Right. So yeah, it's a really like interesting vibe. And here we come with our Western culture of like, oh no, don't, expose kids to drugs is bad. They're going to do drugs and end up on the street and like all the things that are so, such a different mindset. So anyway, that was a definite rabbit hole, but I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's something that I'll be considering as well. Like I want my daughter to be, or sorry, my son, I guess I should say your daughter, my son. I'm having a boy. So yeah, I want him to be like exposed to that in a way that it's like safe and welcome and ceremonial and respected and healing. So yeah, really beautiful that you've had that dialogue with her and she's already getting a baseline of like what this means. Yeah.
Just an FYI, I'm getting a little bit of a lag with our video and audio. Okay. Just hoping that clears.
Yes, hopefully it clears. We'll cut this part out. Yeah, I'll get Rita to cut this out. It should be okay. Riverside will just like figure it all out after, I think. Okay. So as long as you can hear me, hopefully it can.
I can hear you, but like for a while, it like is like for 5 seconds. It just.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope that your feed is what they're receiving and not my feed.
Yeah, they will. Riverside will like upload it all after any of those lags. That's what it's good to do. So thank you for letting me know that.
All right.
We're good. We'll just do our best to keep trucking along and we'll cut this piece out. Okay. So would love to hear a little bit more about like how the medicine is served, like how you work. I know everybody works a little different, but what does an actual like session look like? You've talked about sort of the 3 steps, but when someone comes in to work with you, like, is this a full day? Is it, what sort of pieces do you bring in around ceremony and intention? And like, what does that whole process look like?
Yeah, there's the how I would serve in an ideal space with time and we're all neighbors, like we're all a village together. There's how I would serve that way. And then there's the fact of life, which is 5-MeO is unregulated in Canada. So there are people who are interested to fly up or drive up. I'm mentioning as if, Canada is the most up you can go to receive this medicine. So there's limitations to, how would I love to best serve this? And like, I'll speak to that. I wish it could be, we all sit in a community together. We all share like it with a regular cadence. It's like, let's get to know, let's get vulnerable. Let's talk about our grief, what we're coming up against, conflicts internally, and let this medicine like teach us. And then we share with others. It's like, how, I can't remember, it's like George Orwell's 1984 group think, but there's also group heal, where when one person's like, aha, I got it, and they share, it's like later on, maybe a few years later, it's like, I remember someone had that experience. Oh, like I've now integrated it in a very different level. So that was my idea, would be we all sit with low dose together and we keep working with low dose, and there'll be a signal of like, I think we're ready to go a little bit higher. Let's like, we're like working on a different type of like energy field now, and let's start getting into higher doses and like clear out through some of these like traumas here. And then after that, then we could do this medicine in a very sacred container where we're all witnessing each other and we've gotten to know each other. So we're committed to each other's healing, and we can, our mirror neurons are all fully fired and we're just in it with them, right? That's my ideal. But
that sounds so beautiful. Sign me up for that whenever that's happening. That sounds
All right, let's be
amazing.
neighbors. It's
Yeah.
just a hop, skip, and away, a hop in a ferry.
You're just a quick ferry ride away. Yeah, we could do it.
But the like with the limitations, it's I'd love ensure, hey, are we the right fit? I make sure that like they feel fully trusting, because the whole point of Toad School is to have many safety focused, reverence, consent focused facilitators out there, so you can choose. And it shouldn't be like, oh, this is the only person I know who does it. Okay, I have to choose you. But like, I might not have the same, like, we might have very different just feels. Like, I might rub people the wrong way. So it's about connecting, and with these limitations of travel and all that, it'd be most of the time it's on Zoom video calls, but at least get to know, like, hey, are we feeling good about this together? And then yes, after a few calls, then it's let's spend a day together. Honestly, like now, what I like to do is just let's create no timelines. Let's just spend a whole day together and talk. I like to share. I like to hear all about like what's going on in their lives and understand their story, and I like to share mine too. And usually I get to know, oh, where are we both at in life, because I like to see, oh, what are they processing, how are they giving me advice, which really gives me an idea, like, okay, this is kind of like their internal processing. And this is like, I as part of ENFP, ENTP, or type, what is my Enneagram type, like either between 7 and 9, haven't yet fully, 5 in the investigator. It's like I just like how people tick, and I like to speak in their language so that it lands, and it lands like deeply, like it's something that will echo. Like I want to find that perfect little, like, not the perfectionist part, but I want to find that like right fit for, like, okay, what's going to land for them in their experience, right? This is for the both of us, but this is my service for that individual. So yeah, we like spend the entire day together, hang out, become friends. So see, this is why you got to choose me. You got to like me, because we're going to spend all day together, right? And like get bored together, get excited together, all of that stuff. And then at some point it's like, okay, we're ready. Let's do this. And then we set up the ceremony space and go into it. So that's how I choose to now serve. It's because each person I serve, it's like there's now a bond between us. So this is, yeah, it's different for everyone. But and I also recognize, having a toddler, I haven't had as many opportunities to do this anymore. But this is how I've chosen to serve, and this is my ideal way, is always through connection.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so beautiful. I love that you do that, Trina. That is so important. I can see that in myself too, in this work, and especially in the psychedelic space. Like, it creates such a depth of connection, right? Between you and your guide, whoever that is, whatever medicine you're doing, right? Like, with that depth of vulnerability and healing that takes place, yeah, it can create some unhealthy bonds as well. And we need to be on the lookout for that as guides, but also like that, yeah, that depth of, like you said, kind of friendship and connection and community is like never gone. Right. And you should be working with somebody who gets that and who feels that, and, you feel safe with in that way. Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to bring forward that I really found fascinating about 5 is how short it is in terms of like the actual physicality of a journey. I know that most of the medicines I've worked with, like psilocybin, 3-MMC, MDMA, like these are long ass days. I'm going to say it, right? Like, especially with 3, when we do high dose, it's like 8 hours of therapy, and it's you don't feel like it when you're in the medicine because of all the great amphetamines, but it's a long day for a guide and also for a person. But that's not the case with 5, right? Like, once from the time somebody smokes it or insufflates it, like, how long is that actually felt in the body? How long is the journey in your experience?
Yeah, when the medicine starts, the like quickest from start to finish is 2 hours, and the longest was actually 8 hours while I was over 9 months pregnant. And so I also fasted with this person. I was like, oh my gosh, this is taking a long time, like a long day, right? Because you don't want to be eating in front of them while they're fasting. So like I'm gonna create new hey, permissions for me. But that was a learning lesson for sure.
Yeah.
So yes, it's the half life of this molecule super quick because, as I mentioned, we naturally make this, so our bodies have the like it already has the like whole like pathway of how to clear it. Like the body just knows, like, oh, this is how it like it's in my system. Okay, clear it right away. So it's super fast, and it's similar to like the what we call an NDMT, or as a regular speak, is NDMT is very very quick, like 15 minutes, and people will use something to uh, inhibit NMDMT to create something similar to ayahuasca, or that is what ayahuasca is. So 5-MeO DMT is super quick acting, but I do not suggest adding any inhibitor to it because that's where you can run into toxicity as you learn. And but just as a like anyone who's interested out there, let's just not mix anything with, or at least not prolong the experience of 5-MeO because it's not a narrative experience. Like this is why psilocybin and ayahuasca, those ones I need that duration because I'm following a thread of a process and I'm like kind of getting all the fractals of all the possibilities and I process a whole like just experiences or thoughts, whereas 5 it just goes into like truth as I mentioned. So it's just this, I don't have a narrator in this experience. It's just a feeling. And if once you get the feeling, it's like riding a bike. It's like I rode the bike. I know it now. Whereas like the other ones are like, oh, I'm figuring it out. This is how I like, balance and go fast and all that. Like this, it's just you don't need the duration, which is wonderful because it's in phase 2 trials. They're finding out, oh, it's possible to go and offer this really quickly and have these tremendous outcomes of treatment-resistant depression cured or in remission, or major depression in remission. Like it's being studied. Like when I went to go look at the list of all of the new phase 2 trials coming out with psychedelics, 5-MeO was the most populated actually. So it's
Wow.
coming. It's getting out there. And I'm just so glad once again that in Canada it's been regulated, unscheduled, so that we can start using it now. Like we can find relief now from our own suffering and ailments.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool to know. Yeah. And really powerful, and again, just to bring out that piece that I wanted all of you to know, the actual like medicine journey is like 15, 20 minutes and then you're back. Right. And you're
Yeah.
integrating, but obviously the ceremonial space takes so much longer, right? You're setting the stage, you're talking about a lot and going over a lot before you actually take the medicine. And then there's integration after. So that does extend that. But the actual medicine piece, like felt in the body, is like short, which is wild because, and I also understand this having done psychedelics myself, like, and you can speak to this more because I have not done 5, but I've had a lot of people share with me their experience being like timelessness, right? So even though in this physical realm and in this reality, you may be like out, or in the medicine for 15 minutes, it could feel like years. Is that correct? Have you seen that a lot?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the people are curious, like how long was that? Right? It like usually that's like
Right.
one of the top like 3 questions, and they're just like shocked. They're like, that felt like hours. That felt like an entire lifespan, and it's usually it's like, oh, that was about 12 minutes or like 15 minutes, and they're just shocked because it's a different this I wish we could find a new sexier term for it, but non-dual space, somatic consciousness. It's a place where there is no time nor space. It's a very delicious, love filled space. It's what I've encountered. And oh well, we can get into that spiritual conversation, but we all know it. It's in here. It's just we need a reminder of what this and all this is made out of,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
timeless.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this whole like, we hear this, right? Time doesn't actually exist, right? The whole like time bending and all this, right? Like it's so fascinating to have those experiences. I've experienced that in breath work as well too, where I come out and it's like, was that like 10 minutes? It was like, no, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours you were like out for. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Yeah. So it's just fascinating the things that can come from this. And yeah, I'm loving this so much. And I'm reignited and excited to get into this medicine when the time is right for me. And I'm just so grateful for you coming on, Trina, and sharing like all of your wisdom. I know that we could keep going for hours, but as we wrap things up, are there any like final loose ends or pieces that you feel are important for people to know about this medicine and working with it?
I think just add curiosity, and there's always the time to do it. It's just when it's the right timing for you. And I think it's important. I think it's best and important to explore others first. I mean, there's like, if there's only one to choose, I would choose 5-MeO DMT. But since we get to choose more and more, because this universe is abundant, then let's like take little small steps. And there are other psychedelics that are also extremely safe and FDA studied and getting on to like being processed through and hopefully getting approved. But there's other molecules out there to start exploring first into consciousness, and then we'll pull this out later on at some point.
The big guns.
Right? Yeah, exactly. The big love. Big love.
The big love. Yeah, not guns. Guns filled with love, obviously.
Yeah. Shooting out, hearts and bubbles and rainbows. Yeah, I think that's what it is I do hope this molecule can be accessible for everyone. And then it's like, hey, let's take it, let's go and experience everything. Let's like take little nibbles first of the hors d'oeuvres before we go into the big, like final dessert. And that's what I love about it, is we get to experience a little bit of consciousness in all these little steps. So yeah, I would suggest, waiting for the end to enjoy your dessert.
Sugar-free, of course, right? Ladies listening, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Yeah, that's such a beautiful piece of advice and way to end. Yeah, this has been so wonderful, Trina. Where can everybody come and connect with you? Where's the best place to connect with you? I know I will put the link. Obviously, everybody listening who is curious about getting into any psychedelic, definitely book a consult with Trina to chat about contraindications and medications. And if you're on, any pieces or any concerns there, but where's the best place for people to connect with you and reach out?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just like a new mom, just figuring things out. So like, how do I'm not that, I used to be a lot more into Instagram and all that. And now it's just, usually it's just email, honestly, or a consult. Yeah. Like now it's just gone back to like, how do we connect more instead of these brief little things? So usually it's just, if you want to consult, then yes, thedharmacist.com, click on consult. And to reach out personally, I guess I'm going to build out my Instagram or it's somehow there's a way. There's always a way to get a hold of me. I just haven't made a clear path, but that's your challenge.
Yeah.
To find me.
Beautiful. I love that. It's mysterious. Ooh, okay. Well, her website will definitely be below, and you can also reach out to me and I can connect anyone who's curious. I've connected a few of my clients already who are curious with Trina, and I'm happy to make those connections. So also a reminder, Trina, you don't have to be on Instagram. You don't have to do all the things, right? Like do what works for you. I think we get really sucked into that as, people wanting to spread our passion and help the world, right? We're like, oh, I have to use social media. And sometimes I don't know about that. I don't know about that old social media over there, but
I turned into more high touch, it's like in person nowadays.
Yeah.
That's
come to Vancouver, hang out with Trina, right? Yeah. You'll find her. We could put your address. People will show up at your door. No, just kidding. Oh, amazing. Well, thank you again so much, Trina, for being here. This is always a blast to connect with you. And thank you for all you do. Thank you for all that you've gifted me and your knowledge and training. And I'm so looking forward to continuing to see you around in our circles and support each other and help change the world, in our own ways. And yeah, I hope everybody listening to this, I hope you've really enjoyed this and planted some seeds of curiosity for you, and that you now have some some places to reach out and to continue, your own research and your own feeling into, what's next if you're called to these medicines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Yeah, thanks again, Trina, for being here, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. If you're loving what we talked about today, please remember to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with someone you love. It helps me incredibly reach more people and help more women who need this information. And if you're ready to go deeper into discovering your unique root causes and patterns keeping you hooked on sugar year after year, be sure to come and check out the brand new free root cause quiz that will give you actionable items to finally begin healing your relationship with sugar from the inside out. You can find the link to download this quiz and other amazing resources in the show notes below. I also wanted to just take a quick minute to share a disclaimer. The information provided in this podcast is for general purposes only and is not at all intended to be professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And as much as I do my best to bring you up-to-date and accurate information, please remember that I'm also sharing my opinions, stories, and ideas that are ultimately not supported by mainstream science. My personal advice should not be taken as professional advice, and you are always encouraged and advised to consult with your own healthcare practitioner before making any changes to your health and wellness routine. This podcast is intended to inspire and offer you alternative views to healing your relationship with food, mind, and body. It is up to each listener to take responsibility for their own health and wellness decisions. I hold no liability or responsibility for your results or lack thereof. Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Let's go.